All right, we are back here on the Stark Media Team YouTube channel in Centennial Plaza for our Massillon McKinley game pregame party. Drew Sarackman, Mark Milano, and now we're joined by the head coach of the Canton Central Catholic Crusaders, Jeff Lindesmith. Thanks for coming down.
My pleasure. Nice to be here.
Yeah, we're a little salty with you right now, 49-12. But, you know, hey, and we're on YouTube, so I can say this. My theory always, when I was a coach, was it's your ass for the first half, right? So that's what you did. You know, it's not right to your kids if they can't go out and play hard. And they did that, and they played well. They ran the ball well. You ran the ball well. You tackled well. Really kind of one weird play, long pass play was really all St. Thomas had in the first half. So, you know, great season so far to this part. Just meat grinder of a schedule. Meat grinder of a schedule. You know, they must think that, you know, everyone in the county must think, or in the state think that you guys are 290 across the front line with, you know, kids going to Michigan State and Ohio State all over the field. No one wants to play you guys. But talk about this team, you know, so far and kind of your season.
Yeah, first of all, we came into the season this year. I thought we'd be pretty decent offensively. Obviously, our quarterback, Jack Talkington, has played a couple years with us. Our tailback, Alex Anderson. Last year, we played some young sophomores at the receiver slots. Danny Boron, Jack Hopkins, Jimmy Kane. You know, as this, you don't like to play a lot of sophomores if you can get away with it, but we had to play them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that maturity, just their approach to the game, I sometimes think they're just happy being on the field as sophomores and maybe not understanding the time and the focus you need. So we challenged our kids early in the season, especially offensively, some of those skill kids. We were looking for maturity, looking for growth when it comes to the preparation, when it comes to your focus play-by-play. And they understood that. And we met a lot last year, those sophomores, and making sure they're accountable to their senior class. And sometimes they don't understand that till you grow up a little bit. And that was our big focus for us early on. I thought defensively we would be really young, which we were, whole new secondary. We had our linebackers back, but that was about it. T.J. Perkins was probably the only guy that returned on our defensive line, and he's an undersized, crazy worker kind of kid, just a Central Catholic kid, I always call him. 5'9", 210-pound weight room guy that sweats eating lunch. I mean, this kid just goes all the time.
Especially if he's eating Lindsay's pizza.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, that breakfast pizza. But I thought defensively it would take us a while, and it really has. And, went out in Perry the first week.
That's a tough one to start with.
It's a tough one to start with a real young defense, defensive fronts, and they hurt us a little bit that way. We didn't tackle very well early on, and like you mentioned, our schedule, the first 5 were brutal. And we went over to Norwayne week 2 in Norwayne, great program, big boys, skill kid. They had a tailback linebacker to junior. It's really, really good that got hurt for him, broke his leg, I think, week 6 or 7. It was a great battle. It's a team that we've played for 4 years. We knew all about them.
Oh, yeah. Adam Indorf, the coach over
there. Yeah, Coach Indorf.
You wouldn't think that their offensive line's as big as their coaching staff, but they are.
You're exactly right. And he's got all the Indorf boys and cousins coming in, and they're farm-fed, and they're huge. And we went over there and hung there, got really good offensively that night, and scored 36 points, went for 2 at the end of the game, which something I'll probably almost always do if you have a chance with our program and who we play. 3 yards with our offense, I think we work at it a lot.
You've coached some great kids over the years, but Talkington's a different animal. He is a true Iron Man. In those games that I'd watch him play, and just there's nothing left in the tank at the end of the game when he plays.
You're exactly right. There's only a few like that you've coached. And I heard you guys earlier today, you mentioned a guy like Vince Gliata, that we still didn't play as much defensively as we probably should have because we had some skill kids back there. But Jake Bacutti is another kid that we had to be really careful with.
There's vowels at the end of those names, so
you're exactly
I'm all
right.
about
you
that.
mentioned Lindsay's Pizza. Those guys are smiling. But you're right. There's certain creatures like that are just different part. They just love it. If you would have saw our Salem game, Jack threw for 220, ran for 203, and I'm telling you, we thought we had to carry him off the field at the end of the game. He had spent everything he had for that win, which was a big win for us, and we go 2-3 in our first 5. We played Alliance, which is a really good football team.
Yeah.
Skill kids are great. We thought going in Alliance that we thought maybe we could match them on our offensive line with their defensive line, and they turned it up. I mean, it was the best game I saw them play all year. I know talking to some of those coaches over there after the game, they said we're going to be pretty good if they keep playing like that. And they were awfully good. They took it to us, and then the last 5 games we played better defense.
Yeah, Jim Ballard. I'm sure you watch our show. High
Who
School
doesn't?
Football
I don't
Rewind,
know.
But we kind of said as the season started, hey, Central's got to grow on defense and they got to get better up front. And it seems like you guys have done that every single week. And I've been really impressed. Obviously, and the biggest thing that I think shows that growth was that Jackson game, because they've been so physical and they aren't hiding what they do. They're running the ball at you.
Yeah.
What they do on defense. The Colton Arnold is a tough kid. And to the growth that you guys showed up front in that game just really spoke volumes, I think, of the improvement that those groups have made.
You're exactly right, and that was a game where we were a little bit salty afterwards, and we weren't in for a moral victory over there. But I think most people that saw us early and then saw us later at Jackson said there was, and that's what you want to do with your kids and your teams. Just get better every week, regardless of who you play. And I think this at our school, that has to be that way. Just because every week is such a big challenge, and you go up against, like, even Colton Arnold is as good as there are out there. He is a dynamite football player, and they don't do anything crazy. They just get the ball back to Davide and block, and we ran the line of scrimmage well. That third quarter, they just kind of punched us in the mouth a bit, and we didn't go down, but we bobbed and weaved a bit after that punch. But I told our kids that's the kind of effort we need, and we just got to finish with 4 quarters of football.
Yeah.
And we were good because we knocked them around a little bit. That was the best drive I think we've ever had. 99 3/4 yards against Jackson and their defense. That was huge.
Hey, we had a chance to talk before we got on here. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with Central Catholic and the loss of one of your students over there. Talk a little about what had happened. You and I talked about everybody going to that soccer game and how that helps in the healing process.
Very much so. Jacob Brown passed away I think it was late Saturday or Sunday night. And it's just something you don't want to go through. But a lot of times, and I've been in education for a long time, and you're just kind of forced to go through it. Our school rallied together. We walked into school Monday morning, and we had a faculty meeting early. Our administration and myself, being a guidance counselor, talked to teachers a little bit about the grieving process that high school kids will go through. Our teachers have to go through. And you guys went to St. Thomas. You understand the environment you get with the faith-based education, and how close teachers get with kids is amazing.
Right.
In a great way. And so we did some things our early Monday morning. School was just really quiet for almost 2 days, and we had different prayer services. I set up my office in the chapel, and kids had an opportunity to come down and do some things. And Tuesday night, our soccer team actually had a game. I think our whole student body from Central went. We all wore white. We had practice, and it was a rainy, cold, windy night, if you remember Tuesday night, and it was tough out there. But our kids practiced, and we didn't go through practice very well, but it was okay. It was, like I told them, this is 2 hours of the best time you'll have for a while. Get away from them a little bit, and we did that. We went to the game, and then I talked to the soccer team on Wednesday and asked them to lead us out Thursday before our game.
That's awesome.
And they, and we support all sports, and you do, but there's nothing like running out underneath that goal post, and it's St. Thomas and our bands, and the fans and people like that, and you guys run through the chute with us. And
what a great idea.
Yeah, and they were pumped up. The kids were smiling, and before Thursday, we usually have a St. Thomas rally, and we didn't do that. We went out to the grotto and actually had a prayer service. And our kids didn't know what it was going to be like. The whole school body didn't know what it was like, and we carried candles from the gym all the way around to our grotto. and it was one of the nicest prayer services I've been to.
So tough for the kids because, at that age, they've never lost anyone.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And they've never went through something like that. And they're not sure how to react,
Right.
what to react, what to do, and how you get through some of those things. And I don't think you ever will heal from that, but you learn how to cope with that.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a lot of talking that way. I probably had a half-hour talk just with the football team Monday night on some things in my life that you lose, and you don't get to control those things, so you really should appreciate exactly your loved ones. And I told them that, and that's important, and it's a really hard lesson to teach, and you don't want to teach it, but you have to.
Right.
Because we all get through it.
Yeah. So, obviously you talk about the family environment over there at Central. Your coaching staff is,
Oh, boy.
is green and white through and through. Talk about those guys.
Yeah, they are green and white all, but I think there's two that's not, but you're right. When I took over in 14 and brought back Darren Grisey, he was with us for a long time, a member of our 1988 state championship team. He calls our defense with me. We also, I have my son, Bo, Linda Smith, another Crusader that coached and taught at Fairless, and they talked him coming back to Central. Matt Weller, another guy that was on our 2014 team, does defense, offensive line. I mentioned a couple guys that aren't on our staff, aren't from Central, but Lane Nora is the guy that played at Versailles. And to give you a little
Lane's a great guy.
Yeah, to give you a little tie about Lane, I met him when he was at Northwest, but he played for Versailles.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a sophomore. When we won our first title in '88, he was on that Versailles team. So anytime I go out and talk about Lane, I always talk about when he played in high school and lost. But he to us.
Right.
But then, and the funny thing about it, it was 1989 then. Massillon hosted the playoffs, right? First year they came to Stark County, and the first team to win there in that morning was Versailles, led by Lane Nora, quarterbacking for Versailles.
Wow.
And and we have Corey Nist is on our staff, and Corey was a member of the '97 McKinley football team, and I have some daughters that come to school here. His father-in-law, Bob Jackson, a good friend of mine. I obviously coached at St. Thomas, coached at Malone, been around, has always been a good friend of mine.
Know Bob well.
Yeah, great
His
guy.
brother Dave and Steve.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew him for a while, and he had a daughter come in and ask a little bit about our program a couple years ago, and I said, well, if I ever have something open, I have an opportunity, you're welcome to come down. So my coaching staff's fabulous.
Yeah.
And we're all a little bit weird, right? We're all a little bit crazy. And
You got to be to do.
and let me tell you something, if you have some thin skin to be on our football staff, to sit
Not gonna
maybe
happen.
8-9 hours, you know how it goes, 8-9 hours in the film room, and you're staring at films, and we make fun of everybody, and there's nothing off limits, and
True.
it is downright nasty.
You got to
at
see
times.
him work the officials, though. So Tim Costello's doing one of the games.
Yeah.
And he's coming over to your sideline, and I'm standing next to you, and you are screaming at him. And Tim had the greatest line. He goes, "You got to love this call because they hated it over on the other side."
Timmy can calm me down in a hurry. He does. What a great guy. Oh, yeah. We get excited a little bit. And I always tell them before the game, don't take anything personal. I got to teach intensity to these kids. I might be a little intense at times.
Hey, and kids are soft these days. We got to toughen them up a little
We
bit.
do. We got to toughen them up. You're exactly right.
Hey, do you still have a nice banner that's hanging at your house or
You better
something?
believe it. You better believe it. I have some nice banner, and I got a nice. It's in my wife Carla made me a green and white room, in 2000 or maybe 15, and things like remember you and Sammy and those guys got a cardboard thing and wrote a message after our state title game. That baby's hanging. I think you're talking about a banner that was in Columbus in the locker room.
Yes.
Are you? Are you?
Yes.
I think you might be.
Drew, you don't know the story behind this.
So the story goes like this. We're at Ohio State playing, and we've been there 14, 15, and 16. And the experience that you get going into Ohio State's locker room, it's unbelievable.
I know,
But
yeah. I think we played the game right before your.
yes, you did.
The
Yeah,
game.
you've been there. That's
Yep.
right, at Hoban. So,
Yep.
they don't take care of you very well. Nothing like Stark County when you play. In 15 we just lose, and we're trying to get out of the stadium, and it's barricaded, and there's nobody working anymore.
Yep.
So I get out, and Father Killer goes, "You want me to go with you?" And I go, "No, I'll just move these barricades." And my son Bo is sometimes a little bit more emotional at times than I am, and he goes, "Look at this. I'm taking a picture of a losing state championship coach. He's in the middle of High Street. try to get the bus out. You know, it wasn't very good. So we played the late game after you guys. Last game, Saturday night, Coldwater, we beat them. And I walk back into Ohio State, and the guy working goes, "Here you go, Coach, here's the keys." And I go, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well, I'm getting out of here." He goes, "I want to go." And I go, "Well," he goes, "just lock the door on the way back. Just leave the key in here. It'll be fine." And I went, "Oh, boy, okay." So obviously they have some state banners and things. And he goes, "Yeah, you take anything you want from the state banner." I'm like, "Holy smokes." And then they go in the office, and I don't like to take anything, but here's Urban Meyer's office on our coaching staff, and he had these nice Ohio State chairs. And I go, "No, boys, you can't, no." He didn't mean those things. But we actually were told to lock the door on our way out. Close the door and turn the lights out.
It's like Motel 6.
Yeah, really. It was a funny story, but yeah, it was a different experience. But
Yeah, so the banner that you got, I was walking out and I had an OHSA hat on.
yeah,
And I just grabbed these things. And these guys are looking at me go, "You can't take these things." And I go, "Nobody's going to stop me. They're going to think I'm with the OHSA."
Yeah,
and so out we walk with them. And then we're coming back. TJ had the idea. He goes, "We need to sign this and we need to get this to."
yeah, that was great. It's still in my front room.
Sam has one.
Uh-huh. Does he really?
Yeah, I have one.
I didn't know how many you guys got.
That was it.
You got 3. That's pretty good. Hey, they had a banner with all the teams that played in the state title, and it's just OHSA, and it's probably 20 feet long. That was in the locker room.
Okay, yeah.
And the guy goes, "Yeah, get that out of there." And I go, "Okay, I'll take it." Sure.
I'll tell you this. The one, I didn't coach in any state championship games in Stark County, and I'm kind of upset I didn't.
Yeah.
The 2 that I coached in, we won, was down in Columbus. But the spread in the press box
Really?
was awesome.
Awesome.
There was great food. We get there, and I go up to set up the headsets, and Tim's calling me on my phone. And I ignore. And Tim's like, text me, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "I ain't coming back down there till game time. I'll come down 20 minutes before the game, when we warm up, or an hour before the game when we warm up, but as soon as I'm done, I'm going right back up there. Because they're loading us up with food and everything.
Exactly.
So it was great.
You know what was cool about that game is when you guys won at Hoban, and I've known Tim for a long, long time, and we're getting ready, and they kind of shuffle you from there up on top of the recruiting room where you get dressed, and we're waiting for those guys to get out of the locker room, and they actually carry your equipment down. You got to be on the field. Everything's kind of rushed. And all of a sudden I look over, and here's Tim, and he comes up and gives me a big hug, and he goes, "Your time tonight, your time." And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And,
right.
That's a classy act that you sometimes don't think about.
He's a great guy.
We had the game on the buses on the way home, and the coaches were excited because
right.
you guys are scoring and stuff, and we're excited. We just won, so we're listening to the game on the way home, and then our players, were kind of like, "Okay, well, this is a Northeast Ohio team. So, when Roop intercept that pass, our bus players, everyone just went crazy.
Yeah,
went crazy. So that's cool. We're happy for you guys. It took me a while once I graduated high school to realize, Central, they aren't the enemy anymore.
They're okay. I was hoping maybe Mark would get that way sometime.
What I keep telling you, one day a year. That's the way. Well, it's really 2 because we play in basketball
That's
too.
That's exactly right. There you go.
So, but we appreciate you coming down here, taking time out of your Saturday after a long week for you. You're in a meat grinder of a region.
Yep.
I'd love to see you get a second chance at Mogador.
Yeah, we would too.
I'd love to see that, and we're going to be following you and wish you health and luck, and bring home another one.
Yeah, that would be great. And about health. That's important. You want to stay healthy. You want to be healthy going into the playoffs. And last year we get to Mogador, and our big quarterback Jack has got the flu. Didn't practice all week. A lot of people didn't know that. Just little things like that's a factor, especially for us. And he went out there and battled for about 3 quarters. At the end of the third quarter, when he threw up on my feet, I was a little bit worried. Yeah. And it was not a pretty sight. But he actually was. We covered him up at halftime. He had a bad fever, but he battled it, and we just didn't finish the game like we wanted to. But we hope everybody stays healthy now, and we don't have any major injuries, don't have any players lost, which is really nice.
So you got Mineral Ridge. We talked about that.
Yes,
what
sir.
can you tell us about? Do we have some time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I don't know a whole lot about them. I watched them last night on TV a little bit. A big offensive line, like the power to football a little bit. I've known their coach. I know what kind of things he did at Youngstown East when he was there. We exchanged films this morning, but I always give my coaching staff off this Saturday. Kind of recharge your batteries. Yesterday was a little bit nice day for us. On Friday, because we played Thursday, we had just a rehab day, ice baths, ultrasounds, some treatments, and sent the kids home for 3 days to recharge and get your mind set. And Mineral Ridge, we'll know all about them probably by about 10:30 tomorrow morning. And my wife's here right now, and she's probably going to give me a real bad look, but I'll probably know a little bit more about them by 10 o'clock tonight. But I got to take her to lunch here for a little bit, and then I can get back.
It's okay, Carlo. I'll take you out to dinner tonight. You can leave him alone.
You know what? There's a brand new restaurant right over here called Melange, and I think he needs to take you there pretty soon.
There you go. Her pick today. Anything she wants. This is our day. We usually try to get back together and run around a little bit, see some friends we haven't seen since middle of July, when I go in a little hut and hibernate for 4 or 5 months here and just coach football and do your thing.
But you keep doing it year after year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's sure a lot of fun, and usually this day you're tired after 10 weeks. It's it's a haul. It's a haul, but it's a blast just trying to teach. And you mentioned last week, just anytime you can help kids with their lives, it's great.
Right.
And that's what I love. Yep.
Well, before you go, I just want to remind the audience that the 2 Stark County Catholic high schools have more real state championships combined than the rest of Stark County. So I'm sure all of our listeners will appreciate that.
You're right, exactly right. It's just facts. I mean,
Just the facts.
Just the facts, and people don't like that sometimes from some of our buddies at those other schools. But that's stated correctly.
That's a fact. So,
hey guys,
we
thanks
appreciate you.
for everything you guys do too. Great
Yeah,
show.
no problem.
Enjoy being down here and talking to you guys.
It's always
All right.
good to see you.
You too.
Good luck, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a break here. We'll be back in about 5 minutes, and we're going to go through some of the position-by-position matchups for this Massillon-McKinley game. So hang tight, and we'll be right back. We are back here at Centennial Plaza. Drew Sarackman, Mark Milano, and we are joined by Mary Ann Parcher of the Parcher Realty team, Howard Hanna. They've got an office here right across the street in Centennial, from Centennial Plaza on Market Avenue. Welcome.
Thank you, Drew and Mark. I'm so excited to be here. First of all, I want to say I'm proud to be in line with Stark Media Group, a group that kind of embraces and recognizes all of Stark County teams, athletes. You know, we at Parcher Realty Team, we have a philosophy that we absolutely love our neighborhood. We love and embrace what those in the past have brought to us. I don't think there is a place in the United States that embraces sports, team camaraderie, community support like ours. I've heard this when I've traveled in different areas of the United States. They all know who McKinley and Massillon is. But to have your platform that kind of gives all of the teams and all of Stark a little bit of recognition, I think it's a great thing. And that's what we're about. We're about teamwork. The agents on my team take at heart to give the community back the service that they deserve when they're buying a home. We're going to go to the end zone with their goals. We're not going to, if they have an interception and something goes wrong in their deal, we're right there to take it to the next level. So we're excited to be here. We're excited to be with you. You know, when we're here because of a McKinley-Massillon game, there's a lot more behind it than these wonderful athletes.
Absolutely.
There are parents, there are coaches, there are school faculties, there's community. And again, thank you for inviting all of us at Parcher Realty Team to be part of this fun event. It's already happening here, and it's not even noon.
People are starting to file in down here at Centennial Plaza. So if you're listening, come on down. Jersey's Cafe is open. They're another one of our sponsors with the Parcher Realty team. You can get your adult beverages. It's open container down here, so we're going to have the game up on the big screen. You can hear our broadcast still on the big screen. We've got coaches still coming up today. So a lot of people right now, I think, with the way the housing market is, are intimidated. So I think it's important to, reach out to someone who knows the market and whether you're buying or selling a house, and so where can people reach you guys at? Website, phone number, where can they reach you?
You know, Drew, you're so right about that. And if I can mention quickly about that, there's a lot of speculation. Let's use that word and not fear. There's a lot of speculation. But what I don't know that all of us realize is there are so many opportunities. We don't have to be so concerned. And what I mean by that is, and I'll get to where you can reach us, but for example, interest rates have gone up. But what do we do, again, in a football game when we're getting pushed back? You have to come out with your best plays. There are things out there and opportunities where we can assume a 2.8% rate. We can assume a 3.5. There are sellers sitting on those rates that can offer that to a buyer to get more equity out of their home. So there's so many great opportunities coming from our history that just happened that is so unique in my 31 years that I never saw. So to reach us at Parcher Realty Team, we are at 220 Market Avenue, just across from Centennial Park. We are at parcherteam.com or 330-454-7777. But we have right now we're concentrating very deeply on the opportunities, on how are we assuming every VA FHA rate is assumable. Do folks know that? You know what I mean? And that's a win-win for a buyer and a seller. So we love going the extra step and figuring out how to take a market and get through it. I went through the 06-08 market, rolled our sleeves up, figured how to make it a win-win, and it was all fine. Stark County holds their equity good too. So we got a lot of good communities that are not going to suffer at all if the market shifts a little. It might really be only normalizing.
I think that, when you talk about athletics and winning, how great that is, but you know, when you're in real estate, I don't think people understand the stress that you're under.
Yes.
And I think that there's families that are out there, and I think back to when we were going to buy our house, how much you wanted to get that home.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you've got some homeowners that are sitting there going, you know, I want them. How gratifying is it for you helping them reach that destination?
It really is, Mark, because we're always going to have our first-time home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
We're always going to have our mature folks that need to reshift their square footage and get to maybe one floor living or not as much home. But it's very gratifying. That is the best part of what we do, as I'm sure you guys do. You get to watch the young people come and see the rewards of their efforts. We get to help families of all across the county, and even we go as far as summer or we go south too, but it's really gratifying to help them find what's going to be important is their home and not their house. I like that you said home. So again, I'm so excited to be with you. It's all about community and neighborhoods, and I love what you guys do, and I thank you.
So, Drew, you don't know this, but the two of us had grown up together.
Oh, boy.
We
Yes.
went to grade school together. We went to high school together. I don't want to say how much older than she is than me. She looks great, but we've known each other for a very, very long time, and I'm so happy to see the success that you've had with your business.
And that's what I love about Stark County. We're large enough, that yet small enough, but yeah, we all got excited when Mark Milano was announcing when the 75 St. Thomas football team went to state. And we'd get phone calls, Mark's talking about states. So those are what the young people now are going to get to do when they're 40 or they're 50. But it's all a good thing. And that's when I say we are blessed for what our forefathers did with all of this football richness and community richness. So Drew and Mark, yeah, it's awesome to be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, we appreciate your support and the support that you're providing really to our families and the kids. I mean, exposure is great for them. You know, their grandparents be able to, you know, log on social media and keep up what their kids are doing. And we can only do that with sponsors like you and Parcher Realty Team. So thank you again. We really appreciate you. And like we said, you know, this housing market and these big life decisions can be intimidating. Give the Parcher Realty Team at Howard Hanna a call, 330-454-7777, or visit them online at parcherteam.com. Also can check them out on Facebook. So, Marianne, again, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
and
you,
helping
Drew,
us put this
and
on.
thank you so much, Drew and Mark. And I wish both McKinley and Massillon, players, coaches, faculty, and fans, the best day. It's a beautiful day in Stark County. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We're going to take a quick break, and we will come back and preview the position group matchups between Massillon and McKinley. All right, we are back here. This is the Stark Media team, Massillon McKinley tailgate party. People are starting to file in down here at Centennial Plaza. If you're on your way, jump on down. Beers are flowing. We got people playing cornhole. People got their spot ready for the big game. We're going to get into some of these position battles, with Massillon and McKinley here. And I think we need to start up front. And, this Massillon offensive line versus the McKinley defensive line. At the beginning of the season, Massillon struggled a little bit up front, and I think McKinley did as well. Massillon wasn't running the ball great. McKinley wasn't stopping the run. And both those groups have kind of grown now as the season has gone along. We had an opportunity to talk to Coach Nate Moore a few weeks ago, and he says that group up front for Massillon is really one of the smallest offensive lines they've had in a while there. But they've been running the football really well. Yeah,
they really have, and I think that when you have, Wiltrell Hartson back there, and you can mix in a Freddie Lennox also, I like where McKinley's offensive line is. I think that's going to be an interesting matchup between their O-line and the D-line from Massillon.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the strengths, I'd say, on that McKinley team is that offensive line. I think Dan Patterson does a phenomenal job with those guys over there. And, with the emergence of Nino Hill, this is a different McKinley team. If Nino's carrying the ball week one, I don't know that they start out 0-3.
Yeah. Yeah, they had to work him in and everything. On that Massillon defensive line, obviously Marcus Moore is a stud. They're a defensive tackle. McKinley's going to have to try to neutralize him. But, the person who I think has flown under the radar and for the McKinley Bulldogs on their defensive line is Jenkins at defensive end. He's a guy that's really growing into his role. They liked him last year. Coach Antonio Hall said he's really been excelling. The defense has been more aggressive. In the first few games of the season, they were kind of sitting back and letting offense come at them. So now they're being more aggressive. They're putting pressure on the quarterback. So this game is going to be, really won in the trenches. Both teams have a variety of skilled players we'll talk about for a second, though. But I think one of the keys to this game is going to be McKinley sustaining drives.
Absolutely. Against
Massillon. Coach Bedry Bardewell, the offensive coordinator, likes to run the football. And they're going to have success. If they're only running the ball at 2 yards a clip, 2.5 yards a clip, that's not going to get it done today. And then this Massillon Tiger team has run the ball down people's throats. Austintown Fitch, who, let's be frank, kind of beat McKinley's butts, they ran for 418 yards on Austintown Fitch.
Well, when I look at this Massillon team, I think, and compare them to McKinley, I think they have better depth, too, than McKinley does. And so that's always a concern that you have. But, going back into the day, and I could go back all the way into the 60s, since I'm so much older than you are and remembering these games. Drew, it's not like it used to be where you'd come in and, one team was markedly better than the other and the underdog would win. That's not the way it's been anymore. I mean, the team that was favored has been the team that's been winning here. But to be a part of this, we talked about it last night. I told him, I said, Kerry Cook, who grew up, Mike Cook's father, was my big brother growing up. And his dad took me to my first McKinley-Massillon game. I was scared to death. There was 25,000 people there, and they were pissed.
Yeah, I think we all have so many memories growing up of this rivalry as people are starting to file in down here at Centennial Plaza. I think one of the other key positions that everyone wants to talk about are the quarterbacks of these two teams. Jalen Slaughter is a sophomore, really in his first full year as a starter. Same thing with Keaton Rohde. He's a junior.
You're the quarterback guru, too.
He's in his first full year as a starter.
Yeah.
And the growth of Jalen Slaughter throwing the football. We knew that he had wheels. We knew that he could run. But the way he threw the football in that game against St. Edwards was really unbelievable. And Massillon hasn't had to throw the ball much since that game, but he is developing into a really elite quarterback at the high school level.
You know, and the fact that he's got Ardell Banks to throw to doesn't hurt
Doesn't
matters
hurt at
either.
all.
But when I see those two guys, and I like Keaton Rhodey a lot, I think that Keaton also can beat you with his legs.
And they're going to need him to run the ball a little bit today.
And he's not completely healthy, and that's the concern coming into this game. Both teams obviously want to run the football first, and I think that if you're in Northeast Ohio, you've got to be able to run the football if you think you're going to win a state championship.
Yeah.
You've got to.
For sure. And on the McKinley side, as you talk about Keaton Rhodey, sometimes this offense from McKinley puts some difficult throws on his plate. Mm-hmm. Those post routes, the deep comebacks, the slant routes. Those are timing throws that are tough sometimes. But the way this running game has emerged has kind of opened up lanes. So, Keaton Rhodey, I think for Massillon to win this game today, Keaton Rhodey is going to have to complete something like 14 of 20 passes or 15 of 20 passes. And they're going to have to be efficient in that passing game because they're not just going to be able to run the ball down Massillon's throat like they've done to some of their Federal League opponents.
Yeah, and I think that for McKinley's offense, that you don't want to put him into a 3rd and 15 situation. Mm-hmm. You need to stay away from that and keep them guessing. So if it's 3rd and 5, could they run it? Could they throw it? They need to stay ahead of the chains. They don't want to get behind because that pass rush is going to be fierce coming from Massillon.
Yeah, and obviously we know Massillon's defensive line coach, J.P.
Simon. That's right.
He's going to have those guys ready to go. Talk about some of the other position groups. Really a wealth at running back for both teams. You talk about Nino Hill, the sophomore from McKinley, who himself is a little banged up. He's had a thigh contusion that he's been dealing with. That's not something we'd even heard of when we were playing football, thigh contusion. But that's a thing now, I guess. And, Trayton Mackey, another player for McKinley that's played really well in the backfield. But then massive. Will Trell Hartson. You put Freddie Lennox back there. Pringle, the linebacker, who's a stud. They put him back there. We get to see some elite running back play today.
We do, and I'll tell you what, it all starts up front. If those guys up front are opening up those holes, that's going to make all the difference in the world for them. But, in seeing Will Trell Hartson, when I heard about him initially, he's not as big as I thought he was going to wind up being. He runs very physical. I mean, he is one solid young man. And the experience that he's had over there with those guys up front, and the fact that, they're going to run first and throw second.
Yeah. Another position group for both these teams is the wide receivers.
Oh, Sincere McNeil, Ardell Banks.
I'll tell you what. I think this is a position group that and maybe one of the few that McKinley is better than Massillon. Massillon's got some guys there in Tolles and Ardell Banks. But this McKinley wide receiver group is very talented. They've got Hill back there. They've got Trayshawn Foster, who I've known for a long time, Sincere McNeil. And one of the things that McKinley has to do today is Sincere McNeil has to touch the ball 10 times. Because these games, that they're winning the Federal League where he's got 3 catches, 4 catches, and 1 carry, it can't happen today because this Massillon team's too good. They have to get the ball to Sincere McNeil. And Massillon's got some players, but Sincere McNeil might be the best player on the football field.
You put him in space, bad things happen to defenses because of his speed, and he's got great hands. And I like getting him the ball in some of those short routes and let him get some yards after the catch. We didn't even talk about special teams, but if there's a weakness that the Tigers have, it's in their special teams.
Yeah, and McKinley's been really good returning kicks this year.
They
Punt
have.
returns and kickoff returns. So, that'll be interesting today. That's someplace where McKinley's going to have to excel if they want to win this game. One of the other position groups, we talk about is the defensive backfield. Massillon I think has been a weakness for them in the past. They play guys, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, this kid isn't working in. We got to plug in Jaden Ballard now in these big games. We got to plug in Wilson Lamb. This Massillon defensive backfield has played unbelievably well. I think the McKinley backfield has done a great job. Defensive backfield has done a great job forcing turnovers back there. Perlozzi has done a great job They're a linebacker, safety for them. Trayshawn Foster's made some big plays, some interceptions. But I think those defensive backfields are solid too. I think when you look at both these teams as a whole, then Massillon, like you said, probably has more depth. But I think each position group, you can't say that, well, there's a big mismatch here.
Mm-hmm. I think that when you look at these two teams, Massillon is at the point where they take what they want. Mm-hmm. McKinley's going to have to take what they can get.
Yeah.
There's a difference there. And sometimes that's a tough pill to swallow. If you're an offensive coordinator and you're saying, I'm going to have to dink it and dunk it here and I'm not going to be able to get the ball down the field. I think Keaton Rohde throws a great deep ball. But I think that this is a McKinley team that's going to have to score off of some special teams. But they can't score too quickly either because they don't want that defense to be out there. We've talked about this.
Yep.
Kent State University falls into this all the time. They score so fast, and their defense is on the field too much, and these guys wind up wearing down. So how do you combat that? Well, you've got to try to control the football.
Yeah, for sure. McKinley has to control the football, have long, productive drives. They can't turn it over, and they need to force a couple turnovers on Massillon. I think when McKinley's defense has gotten in trouble this year, it's been because they're not being aggressive. You look at the talent on this McKinley team. Play some man-to-man. Play some one-high safety. Get after these receivers. Don't sit in this too deep, base defense look and let teams throw the ball on you and do those types of things. Be aggressive if you're McKinley today, because if you can get Massillon in second and long. So if I'm Chad Anderson, the defensive coordinator for McKinley, I'm going to be aggressive on first down. Bring some blitzes. Sometimes you'll be successful. Sometimes you won't. But if you can get Massillon into 2nd and 13, 2nd and 11.
Get him behind the chains.
It really puts a lot of pressure on Jalen Slaughter, which he hasn't had since that St. Ed's game. And like we said, he did play well, but he hasn't had to do that in a few weeks.
And this game's so much different, too, because a mistake here is compounded 10 times over. And so as a young high school kid, how do you deal with this? Mm-hmm. The emotions run high here. McKinley has to keep it close to give themselves an opportunity to win it at the end. If one team starts to jump out in front of the other, then they're just going to dictate what they're going to wind up doing. And the last thing you want to do is to be put in the position where you're going to have to throw the football, and these guys are just pinning their ears back to come after you.
Yep.
That I don't want to see. But weather is not going to be a factor in today's games.
No. I cannot remember a Massillon-McKinley game when it's been 70 degrees.
I've been at some, but I've seen snow. I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I think there's a song out there that goes something like that. But it's just a great thing. I mean, you talk about a game that's on the board in Vegas. What high school game is on the board in Vegas? Only McKinley and Massillon.
Yeah. And I've seen a couple different lines this week for this game, and the most common line I've seen is McKinley plus 16. So we'll see what happens. I think everyone here is hoping for a closer game than that, and McKinley has the ability. I mean, I think they're two totally different teams. The teams that lost the first 4 games to the team that's won these previous 5.
And Drew, when you look at McKinley and this run that they've been going on here, one of the big factors of them winning these games, they had 1 turnover, and that's it. That's the big difference. That and Nino Hill, those are the 2 differences in this McKinley team.
Yeah. So, as people are starting to file in here, down Jersey's Cafe looks packed over there. We got people out on the green space that are starting to get their spot. I've got a little Massillon-McKinley trivia question. So I know everyone can hear us out there on the big speakers. If anyone can come up here and tell me who has the longest run in McKinley-Massillon game history, I will buy you a beer. So if you know who has the longest run in McKinley-Massillon game history, I'll buy you a beer. So come on up here. They're on a little delay. They haven't heard me yet, but we'll see if anyone comes rushing up. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, Coach A.J. Sarbaugh of the Fairless Falcons should be rolling in any second. And I know the Buckeyes are going to start here pretty soon. We'll talk about what happens. We'll have to talk with Brianna, see what she wants to do with the big screen. But hang in there, and we will be right back. We are back here at Centennial Plaza. Drew Sarakman with Mark Milano, and we are joined by the head coach of the Fairless Falcons, A.J. Sarbaugh, and Luke Yoder and Brody Pumnio from the Falcons as well. So welcome in. We'll get to them in a second, but I just wanted to repeat it again. Trivia question for you people out there. By the way, guys, you're going to hear a delay, so just ignore it. Listen to us. Trivia question for all you Bulldog fans out there. I will buy you a beer if you get this right. Who has the longest run in the history of Massillon McKinley game? Longest run in the Massillon McKinley game history. You know it, sir?
We'll buy you guys a hamburger or something like that.
You guys don't
no
get a beer.
alcohol.
They have
We don't
no
want to get it.
idea.
You guys don't get it. All right. Well, we'll see if someone comes up. But big win last night for the Fairless Falcons in the Blue Cup game. 41-14.
Thought you were going to bring the cup with you.
Yeah.
We didn't even think about it.
Or do you guys have like a Jello mold in the cup right now?
No. It's sitting on my desk at the office.
Did you call Coach Dennison and thank him for his win last night, too? 5-way tie. AJ, this is the first time that there's ever been a 5-way tie in the pack, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard of a 5-way tie before, but if you look at it like everybody's wins or losses, we lost the South by 1. They go for 2 at the end of the game. We lose the CVCA by 2. We don't get a 2-point conversion. We beat Northwest by 3. Northwest loses by 1 last night. Northwest beat CVCA by 1 going for 2. South beat CVCA in overtime. Orville beat South by 1 point. I mean, that's just how the league went this year. It's been crazy.
Tight games. Yeah, it's really competitive, much like the EVC when you look at them and everything that they're doing over there.
Yeah. So CVCA is leaving the league. You know, I heard some
He's smiling.
Heard some conversations last night. And you don't have to let me any insider info, but is the league actively recruiting teams to come in right now, looking out there, maybe putting invites out there?
My understanding is that the ADs meet once a month with the principals, and that at some point there's supposed to be a letter sent out. Anyone that's interested is allowed to apply. I don't know if they've targeted anybody or what the next step is, but at some point there's supposed to be a letter being sent out to invite anyone if they would like to apply to the Pac-7.
Gotcha. So you brought 2 of your players here with you. Tell us a little bit about these 2 guys.
The first guy to Mr. Milano's right is Luke Yoder. He's a 4-year starter for us, plays wide receiver and free safety. He led the county in interceptions as a sophomore. He's one of our leading tacklers. He's really had a couple big games in a row receiving. Also runs track, took 6th in the 200 last year at the state meet. 2-year captain. And then to his right, you've got Brody Pumnio, also a 4-year starter. Had our most yards and touchdowns before last week when everybody started double teaming him, and we've been going to Luke. Luke's had 2 monster games, but Brody guards the best player on the other team every week, and he's punt returner, kick returner. They're both on every special team. Brody's the leading scorer in basketball, 3-year starter at point guard, and he took 2nd in the 800 at the state track meet. So 2 good football players and
what was that 800
athletes.
time?
154.
Who's faster? 40-yard.
For a sprint, maybe me. Definitely not different.
All right.
Definitely not distance, though. Not too good at that.
Now, the 2 of you, I mean, it's tough to say we're going to try to take one of the 2 of you away. That's not going to happen. Both of you have almost 1,000 yards receiving. I think after last night, did you both go over that 1,000-yard?
I'm not sure.
I think you did, but I'm still maybe 80 yards short.
Yeah, my mom or dad told me that if the stats were correct, then I think that I made it over 1,000. But I'm not sure if Brody got there last night or not.
I think I'm close, but I'm not
Yeah.
there
Because they were double teaming you.
yet. Yeah.
They
What
were.
the
He
heck
got the
was that
corner
about?
and the safety. And he might get it again next week. That's what Orville did to us in week 5.
As long as we win.
Luke, what a great game. I mean, you had against Triway, you had 229 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns last night. I mean, when you look at what both of you are doing right now, do you think that Fairless is playing their best football right now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we're all just clicking on just clicking on all cylinders. We're just playing all so good together.
I agree with him.
Well, since you're catching all these passes, somebody has to throw them to you.
Yeah.
And what a season Carson is having, AJ.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable.
It's like we were talking in the office the other day, Carson's been outstanding. He's got 2 guys to throw to. The offensive line's been really good. He's got a lot of time to throw. And Peter Killey running the football sets up play action and other things. But Carson's really intelligent. He very rarely makes the same mistake twice, makes good reads. But what a year for quarterbacks in the county. I mean,
Absolutely.
Berg at Alliance, Carson for us, Drew DeShields at West Branch. You've got Poochie Snyder at South. The Massillon kid, I mean, it's
there's
unbelievable.
Yeah. Keaton Rhodey at McKinley has been good.
When you look at people, I mean, Carson's over 2,000 yards, and he's like 5th when you look at the stats for who's listed in the county. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in high school, a long time ago, graduated.
Not as long as me, though.
2005. If you threw for 1,000 yards, that was really, really good. So I'm going to embarrass your head coach here a little bit. So I've been hanging on to a story for a long time. So I am in probably 7th or 8th grade at Our Lady of Peace, and I can't remember what it was. So grade school down here in Canton, and we used to have to go to church, and during school, a few times throughout the year, we would go to Mass. All school would come together, and the young kids, I don't know if it was kindergarten, 1st grade, or 2nd graders, they weren't behaving in church. So they said, we're going to put these young kids with the older kids to make sure they behave. So I get in there, and I'm screwing around. Like, I'm talking to my buddies, whatever, and they put this kid next to me, this red-cheeked kid with these big ears, and I'm like, okay, cool, this kid's all right. So all of a sudden, Mass starts, and he's crawling all over the place, looking around, jumping around, like, this kid is wild. I'm like, what the heck is this? So I pull out this card. I'm like, what the hell is this kid named? AJ Sarbaugh. I'm like, who is this AJ Sarbaugh? And then for, I think, the next 3 Masses, I had to sit with him, but he was all over the place.
You couldn't contain him,
I couldn't
could you?
control him. No.
AJ, and I hope Matt, my son Matt's listening to this because he does need this help. When you got down to Fairless, you had to change the culture that was there. It's not an easy thing to do. Matt's faced with that up at Wadsworth with their lacrosse program. How was it that you went about changing the culture?
That's a really hard, I don't know if it's a hard question, but there's so many things that we had to do. I mean, we started lifting at 6 a.m. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. The weight room has changed. And these 2 guys being 3-sport athletes never missed the weight room, but we didn't have a weight room program. So we started lifting at 6 because we've got 40 kids on the team, but 30 of them in the spring play baseball or track. So you can't just not be at the weight room. And our attendance has improved year after year. I think the summer, June and July, it used to be come and go as you please. And this year we went to Mount, our 3 days of camp, and we had our 10 days total, and we had over 40 guys every day. So the players have bought in. Our administration's been outstanding. We've got turf now, and we would practice in June and July, and you didn't have lines on the field. And our booster club, our parent support, the community. So I think there's so many things that if you do things the right way, and then the parents and the booster club and the kids buy in, but it's not just one coach or the players. You need so much help from so many different individuals. But these guys have really bought in and believing what we've done. And I think something that's been really cool for them, and you can ask them, when I was at Mount, Vince Karras started doing this thing called Raider Advantage. And every Wednesday we'd have a guest speaker come in. So at Fairless, I have started Falcon Advantage, and I've had Fairless guys come in that have had success outside of school, like once they've graduated, because our kids were told forever, you can't win here, you can't have success, you can't do anything, you're going to live in Fairless your whole life. So I've had Fairless people come back and talk to them, and I've had my mix of Hoover people or college people, and I think they really enjoy that because people come and watch them and are like, wow, people know who Fairless is, and they get to hear different stories about how football has affected them and made an impact on them and how special football is in Stark County. So I think it's a lot of different people coming together to create that culture. You got to have support. If you don't have support, you're not going to do anything.
All right, so you guys, back-to-back shares of Pac-7 champions, playoff game last year. What are the goals? What are you guys talking about right now? What's your goals for the rest of the season?
Win as many playoff games as possible.
There you go. You guys, do we know what we're looking up matchup-wise this week?
Yeah,
up?
we'll have Orville at home. Yep.
Team that's hot right now. Don't take them lightly.
Yeah. We played them week 5 at home and won 42-14, and obviously they're a different team now. They beat Triway last night 23-15. So that'll be a good indicator because we played Triway last week. And then we'll go from there. We get one home playoff game and hopefully move on to week 12 because once you win the first one, anything can happen.
And I think I look at both of you, tremendous athletes, and you remember when you were in 5th and 6th grade and you'd see those varsity guys that are out there. How is it being that guy right now? And do you try to go down and watch some of the younger kids play just to kind of bring them along? So, and I tell you, when I would see somebody like that when I was in high school, say I was a freshman and some senior would talk to me, I'd think, oh my God, some senior just spoke to some low-life freshman that's over here. Do you try to do that to try to bring these kids along?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, we try our hardest to, get the freshmen and the sophomores to come along and just, to buy into the business of the team, to come to lifting and everything, show up in the summer and all that. And we hold, flag football games on Saturdays sometimes, so us older guys try to go down there and support them sometimes, too.
So when you look at playing all these different sports, how much do these other sports help you when you look at football?
A lot, especially, track. Or we have an amazing track coach that he has a good lifting program. He gets us practicing good too, so definitely helps a lot.
Really helps with the speed too.
Yeah.
Carrying over to football.
And you guys are fast. I told Coach earlier, and I was really surprised. I mean, I've coached at some big schools. I've coached at small schools. I think for a school your size, you guys have really, really good team speed. And I think part of that is I think every team's got some fast guys, but you guys are out there and you're confident in what you're doing. The coaching staff looks like they're prepared. You guys know where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there. You're playing with confidence. So I think that's a key for you guys going forward. It's, I think this coaching staff's going to throw some new things. When you get in the playoffs, it's new game plans, stuff you haven't done before. So, make sure your teammates are focusing and doing what you need to do so you can continue to play fast. And then, do you guys plan on playing college football?
I plan on running cross country track.
Okay.
I'm not really sure yet. I mean, it just depends. I'm seeing what kind of offers I get, and then just kind of decide go from there.
Well, with if you guys are unsure, you and a lot of teammates, you have limited opportunities left now, right? Or what grades? You guys are both seniors?
Yeah.
Yeah. So limited opportunities left. Take advantage of that. We're all cheering for you here in Stark County. Everyone likes Coach Sarbaugh. He's an outgoing guy. I do think that I could
not go to church.
I can stump the Sarbs. I think I could stump him in the trivia.
Is the answer Morgan Williams?
It's not.
In 05?
It's not.
Okay.
You're close.
That was my guess.
Yeah.
Because he had like a 90-yard run against Massillon.
Morgan Williams being the all-time leading rusher. He didn't have.
I thought he had a big run in that game.
It was big. It was like 75.
Yeah, it was going towards the highway.
So, but he is not. It was actually after that.
Okay.
So it would be 2007 was the year of the longest run in McKinley Massillon game history. So, and
see the wheels turning down there?
They know.
It wasn't McGuire either. I know
07 it was at McKinley.
It was.
And Massillon won by a field goal in overtime.
Yep.
You're getting close.
So if anybody knows,
was it Torrance?
Who has nope? If anyone knows who has the longest run in Massillon McKinley game history, come on up here and I'll buy you a beer. But like we said, good luck to you guys the rest of the season, the playoffs. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again. Hopefully, you guys just put your head down and one at a time. 1-0 every single week. Yep. You guys got a great coaching staff that are putting you guys in great positions. We wish you health and luck. Those are two things you need. I've been a part of 3 different state championship teams, and health and luck are the things you can never account for, but you got to have them. So I wish both those to you. So appreciate you guys coming on. Thanks, AJ.
Thanks for having
guys.
us.
Yep,
We
Good
appreciate
luck
it.
the rest of the season.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks to everything Stark Media's done. It's awesome how you guys are promoting the county. It's outstanding.
Appreciate it.
Before I let you go, you're getting a new high school.
Yes, we are. Yes.
We got to talk just for a second about that.
It's going to be unbelievable. We're supposed to be in there in February, but it'll be done in May. So brand new school, new gym, new everything. The plans look really, really nice. We'll have a football-only locker room. Like right now, it's football, cross-country, golf, boys basketball, wrestling. I mean, Brody knows in the winter, basketball, you get this side, and wrestling, you get that side. Baseball and track split it. So the new high school is going to be outstanding. We're really the locker rooms. They say they're taking out the hill. That's why our slogan this year was "One Last Walk," because the concession stand's getting torn out. We're going to walk right from the locker room onto the field.
Perfect.
So it's going to be really, really cool when that gets done. There's a lot of good things going on right now in Fairless.
Awesome, awesome. Well, like I said, good luck to you guys. We are live from Centennial Plaza. You are watching us on the Stark Media Team YouTube channel. We've got the Buckeyes up on the big screen. Not sure if there's a score yet. I would assume by halftime the Buckeyes will be up big before this Massillon-McKinley game starts. So hang tight, and we will be right back. All right, we are back from break here on the Stark Media Team YouTube channel. We are live from Centennial Plaza, right outside Jersey's Cafe. We've got Marianne Parcher and the Parcher Realty team down here. We've got people filing in. They are showing the Buckeyes right now on the big screen, and they are down 7-3 to Iowa. Everyone's watching the Buckeyes on the big screen, so if you're enjoying that out there in the plaza, just to let you know, at 2 o'clock, we will have the Massillon-McKinley game up with full sound. So we appreciate you bearing with us. You know, I know you guys got to listen to us. That probably isn't the best thing. Some of you guys probably want to listen to the Buckeyes, but we appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you follow us on social media, Stark Media Team. We share a lot of community events going on, a lot of high school football, college things, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So check us out. We still don't have an answer on our trivia question. So for a free beer or drink of your choice that isn't like Johnny Walker, if you can come up and tell me who has the longest run in the history of the Massillon-McKinley game, I will buy you an adult beverage of your choice. That is not Johnny Walker.
All right.
But we're going to go through the teams in the playoffs right now for Stark County.
It's almost who isn't.
Yeah. So the playoffs have increased to 16 teams per region. Seems like almost everyone gets in the playoffs now, so we're going to run through it real quick. We'll start in Division I, Region 1. The McKinley Bulldogs are currently...
More Southeast Enders from Canton coming back to get me. 448 teams.
in the playoffs.
You tell me, is that too many?
That's too many. It's going to dilute.
16's too much.
But, you know, it's good experience for kids that normally wouldn't get in the playoffs, so that's a plus. You know, the OHSA needs their money.
I liked 8. I thought 8 was plenty.
Yeah, I did too. So, like we said, Division I, Region 1, McKinley Bulldogs are in the playoffs squarely. Their seeding will be affected today by this game with Massillon. Jackson Polar Bears, who went down to Hoover last night, are in there, and they're looking like they're going to get a home game too in Region 1.
Right. I mean, since there's 16 teams, the top 8 get a home game. And so right now McKinley's sitting in that 4 position. So they're not going to drop below 6 if they would lose today. Jackson's in there solid 8. And look at Glen Oak. TJ Downing smiling. They're in there at number 11.
Yeah, Glen Oak, big win last night over Perry. Perry's kind of reeling right now. So Glen Oak, they might get a home game, depending on what happens with some of these games today. But they might also play St. Ignatius or McKinley, is what we're hearing. Division II, Region 7, Massillon Tigers, unless they were to lose today, would hold on to that number 1 seed. Number 2 seed is Lake.
You know what? I have a feeling that even if Massillon lost, I don't know that they would drop below 1.
They're up that much. So Lake's the number 2 seed, playing really good football up there, physical. Dan DeGeorge's team. If you haven't been able to seed Lake, make sure you check them out in the playoffs. Green is coming in at number 11. Green with a prolific offense. Can't stop anybody on defense right now.
Right. Can't run the football very well either. But this is a young Green team. I think that what Mark Geis has done over there, we talked about changing the culture, and he's done it over at Green because, Drew, in all the years that I'd seen Green, I always thought they had good, skilled kids. They just weren't good at the point of attack, and that's where they've gotten better.
Yeah. And, you know, he's done a good job of holding on to his kids. Lose a lot of kids. Green lose a lot of kids to Hoban and St. V every year. So Mark Geis is, you know, trying to hold on to his local kids so they don't go elsewhere. North Canton, who's really starting to play well, is in the playoffs in Region 7 as well. And Perry. We talked earlier, Perry may have a week 1 of the playoff matchup with the Massillon Tigers. So if Columbus Beechcroft, I believe, let me pull this up, this scenario. But if Massillon wins today, which obviously they're the favorite, but anything can happen in this rivalry game. If they win today, and if Northland beats Columbus Beechcroft, we will have Perry versus Massillon in the first round.
Wow.
And that'll be wild.
Yeah. And obviously at Massillon.
Yeah. wild game. Division 3, Region 9, the Lions Aviators.
I'll tell you what, you and I had seen them in the scrimmage against North Canton. I thought they looked awfully good there. We had them week 1 against Lake, and I told Tim Goodman after that game, and he was pretty dejected. I said, you're going to win a lot of football games this year. This is one of the best Alliance teams that I've seen in a while. I mean, they're pretty complete up front. They've got great receivers. That defensive secondary is unbelievable. There's 3 guys back there who have been playing for 3 years together. Mm-hmm. I'm really impressed with that Alliance team. And with Zerbrug and their outstanding Caden Davis as a running back, they've got a lot of weapons on that Aviators team.
They do. They've got Division I athletes. They're going to be dangerous, and a really tough Division 3 Region 9 is loaded. I mean, they are 8-2, and they might not even get a home game. Right now, I think they're sitting number 8.
All these quarterbacks, you're my quarterback guy.
All right.
Who would you take as your quarterback?
Out of all the quarterbacks in Stark County.
We'll include West Branch, Salem.
I think as it translates to the college level, Brandon Zerbrug at Alliance is going to have the most success in college. To win a game in a high school football game right now, I think Poochie Snyder at Canton South
can't argue with
Mr.
that.
Clutch, Drew DeShields at West Branch. But these 2 quarterbacks today in this Massillon McKinley game are playing really well right now.
Right.
Keaton Rohde and Jalen Slaughter. And I think in a close game, they're going to be the ones that have to win it for their team today.
Mentally tough, physically tough. You got to be both of those. Yeah. Then we're going to state what Division 4, Region 13, West Branch number 1. Yeah. I tell you what, they're loaded over there. And they've got a big game today though too.
Yeah.
Ron Johnson, who's a name that Canton McKinley people know really well. I think he was 3-1 against Massillon when he was over here. That West Branch team is awfully good, and boy, Drew DeShields is the real deal.
Yeah, he is good. He's got right now. Drew DeShields at West Branch has 32 touchdown passes and 1 interception. That is unbelievable. That's unheard of. Also in that Division 4 Region 13 Northwest, Canal Fulton Northwest, Canton South, who's scoring a lot of points. But then the monster in that division, I know West Branch is number 1, but Cleveland Glenville is in Division 4 Region 13.
Look, I've got a good friend of mine who's down at Delaware Buckeye Valley, Greg Georgic. He and his son are both coaches on that staff. Every year, Greg and I have a bet. We have to pick all 7 state champions. I'm telling you right now, that's your Division 4 state champion.
Yeah, so, Ted Ginn Sr., obviously the head coach at Glenville for a long time, but a lot of people don't know. Ted Ginn Jr., the former Ohio State Buckeye and NFL alumni for multiple years, is the offensive coordinator on that Glenville team.
Look at you.
Or the Glenville
I didn't know that.
Yep. So they've really improved. They're dangerous. They return a lot. They've got a lot of speed, some speed that those Division 4 teams do not see.
Absolutely not.
So, Carrollton also in Region 15, they're going to be a playoff qualifier. All they do is run the football, so that they're going to have to try to impose their will on people. Fairless, we just had Coach A.J. Sarbaugh up here. His Fairless Falcons are in Division 5 Region 7 in the playoffs. Canton Central Catholic, we had Jeff Lindesmith on out here earlier this morning. Canton Central Catholic is a team that can make it to a state championship game for Stark County this year.
I think there's a possibility, and they would probably, Kirtland's in their region.
That's going to be the game, I think. I think they're a better matchup. They lost to Mogador last year in the playoffs. I think it's a better matchup this year for them. They're playing really well. We talked about how tough they played Jackson. Jackson Division I school, and Central Catholic's a Division 6 school, and for how tightly they played them, that's uncommon.
Well, and they're healthy right now, too, because he talked about the fact that Talkington wasn't healthy when they played last year against Mogador. Mogador is like a little Massillon. That's what I think of them. When you go over there, they got the Tiger Paws that are down on the street going over to the stadium. That's going to be a great game. I think that for sure Central is going to win week 1. What happens after that, who knows?
Then, we only have 3 Stark County teams that aren't making the playoffs.
And you and I know one of them.
Yeah, our alma mater, St. Thomas Aquinas, will not be in the playoffs. East Canton looks like they're going to be out. They're 1 spot out right now. Tuslaw, I don't believe is going to be in also. But, another team right outside Stark County, barely.
Malvern.
Malvern. They're going to be in the playoffs. And Matt Churko's team's solid right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you, their quarterback play has been awfully good over there, and
Jared
they always
Whipper.
have athletes down there. I don't care if it's football or basketball; doesn't make any difference. Malvern's been awfully competitive, but I felt bad for East Canton because they controlled their own destiny. If they would have won last night, they were in. They've been eliminated.
Yeah, so the Buckeyes did get on the board, as everyone sees up there. It is now 10-7, Ohio State over Iowa. We didn't get an answer to our trivia question. I'll give someone one last chance. If you know who has the longest run in Massillon McKinley game history, come on up and I will buy you a beer. You've got about 2 minutes to figure that out. And if not, I'm going to give the answer, and we'll give another trivia
Frankie
question.
D'Antonio, my man from the Southeast End. You've got to know the answer to this question. Tell him the question again.
The question is, who has the longest run in Massillon McKinley game history? Briante Dunn went to Gleno. So Briante Dunn went to Gleno. Well, I'm giving everyone a couple extra minutes to come up and get it. It's not Michael Doss. I did not, no. Nope. It was in 2007. You're thinking of TJ. Yeah.
That's a first, somebody mistaking you for TJ.
So the answer to that trivia question is, in 2007, Christian Griffin had the longest run in Massillon McKinley game history. It was an 83-yard touchdown run on the opening drive of the game. So we are going to take a quick break here. I hope you guys are all enjoying the Buckeyes. We'll come back with about 45 minutes. We'll preview the Massillon McKinley game, and then we will get the Massillon McKinley game up on the big screen at 2 o'clock. All right, we are back here on the Stark Media Team YouTube channel. Drew Sarakman with Mark Milano down here at beautiful Centennial Plaza. People are starting to file in. Jersey's Cafe is rocking. They got the Buckeyes up on the big screen. The Buckeyes with a lead right now, 13-7. They just kicked another field goal. We appreciate the Parcher Realty team helping us sponsor today and Jersey's Cafe. We are going to preview this Massillon McKinley game. Before we do so, no one got our last trivia question, so if anyone can answer this trivia question for a free beer from me, you can come on up and answer it. It is, who has the most rushing yards in a single game in a Massillon McKinley game? So which player ran for the most yards in a Massillon McKinley game? So if you know the answer to that, come on up and I will buy you a beer. We talk about today's matchup. I believe the Massillon Tigers have now won 6 straight over the Bulldogs. The last time the Bulldogs won was when Robinson, Dominique Robinson, who's now playing for the Chicago Bears, jumped the pylon over in,
what was left of Fawcett Stadium.
And scored the touchdown. But, we expect a great game today. Both teams are hot coming in. McKinley's winners of 5 straight. Massillon winners of 8 straight.
And when you look at this game, 133rd meeting, everybody thinks that the War of 1894 is the oldest matchup in the country. It isn't. I think that there was 12 or 13 other schools, high schools, across the United States that have had a longer running matchup, but probably none with the pomp and circumstance that these two
teams. And I think
teams.
one of them's in Ohio, Piqua and Troy, I believe.
The one that I didn't know about, Piqua and Troy, the one I thought would have been close would have been Dover and Philly.
Yeah.
But it's not. And what a great game that was last night, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, the new Philly pulls it out in overtime, 21-20 over Dover. Everyone's in the sun. We're a little chilly up here in the shade.
Well, I'll tell you what. There was another time when McKinley and Massillon played, and it was about 70 degrees, and we have beautiful weather over here today. But when I think back at these games, the first one I ever went to will always stand out to me. But the 100th meeting between the two schools at Massillon, Jack Rose, who was my coach at St. Thomas, was over there. I mean, Bart Starr was in town. ESPN covered it. Overtime game, missed extra point on was a difference in that thing. But that's a game that I'll never forget that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely starting to get some people filling in over here. They're sitting out here enjoying
our
the sun.
trivia question. So we had an answer of
Raymar Morgan.
Yeah, but
would have been good.
I think he meant
Morgan Williams.
Yeah.
There was a Morgan in there somewhere.
Yep. So if you know, like I said, who has the most rushing yards in a Massillon McKinley game, come on up, and I'll buy you a beer. So, but this game today, we talked about earlier position matchups. I think keys for this game, if you're Massillon, is run the ball like you have been the last 6 weeks, and make Keaton Rohde uncomfortable at the quarterback position, and don't turn the ball over.
Take away the run from McKinley and make Keaton Rohde have to throw the football. Yeah, I agree. Penalties are going to be big in this. I mean, emotions run high in this football game. We've seen it, and if there is an Achilles heel to Massillon, it's penalties. I mean, think back to that game they had against Green last year. I think they had 130 yards in penalties. And these weren't made-up calls. I mean, they were personal fouls. You're jumping off sides. I think they jumped off sides 2 or 3 times. Green didn't even have to snap a football. They got an automatic first down just because they had jumped off sides. So that's going to be important. But the other thing is that you got to make sure that you don't get thrown out of this game. Because if you do, now you got to sit out another game.
Yeah, the emotions always run high in this game. We've seen some chippiness. Usually the officials do a great job of, keeping things under control. And then if you're McKinley, I think the keys to this game is do what you have done all year on special teams and positively impact the game. You've got returns in the kicking game for touchdown. You got returns in the punting game for touchdown. You have forced turnovers on punts and kickoffs. Continue to do that today against a Massillon team who has struggled. Moeller had returns against them. I'm not sure if it was for a touchdown. St. Ed's took the opening kickoff back on Massillon for a touchdown. And then we talked about this guy before is get Sincere McNeil the football.
What drives me crazy so many times is coaches outthink themselves. This is our guy. So we scored on a 50-yard touchdown pass. We're not going to go back to that again. I mean, I keep going to that well until it's dry.
Yeah. Sometimes I think I watch McKinley on offense, and they're doing something well, and then they're like, well, we're not going to do that anymore. And you can't do that. I mean, sometimes, they're running the ball really well, and then they start throwing deep shots, and it's like, what are you doing? But today they're going to have to be balanced. Keaton Rohde is going to have to complete 15, 16 out of 20. He's going to have to throw some touchdown passes. He's going to have to hurt Massillon with his legs so they're not keying on Nino Hill.
I think McKinley has to stretch the field too, because if they can do that, that's going to help loosen up the run for him too. And I can't wait to see what Nino Hill is going to wind up doing here, because this is going to be the best competition that he's played against thus far. But in talking to Tim Goodman over the Lions, he sure wishes he was still over the Lions.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, they've got a good one there in Caden Davis. But, so those are the keys for us. We're going to make our predictions here in about a half hour closer to game time. But you've got some more tidbits on the history of this rivalry.
Yeah, when I went back and I started looking at this, we've always talked about, schools recruiting and whatnot. Well, this has been going on for eons. So back in 1919, Massillon had actually raided a pro team in Akron and signed Newt Rockney as a player. Local businessmen had financed this. McKinley wasn't going to be outdone by that, because they just went out and signed a guy by the name of Jim Thorpe. He wasn't too bad. But you look at these games, and I thought back to when I was little, and my dad would always take Mom to the grocery store on Saturdays. And so here we are on Saturday, and we're listening to the McKinley-Massillon game. I kept hearing about Massillon, and I thought that Massillon High School was like Oz. So freshman year at St. Thomas Aquinas, we go over to play against Massillon in basketball. Door opens, and this guy goes, we're here. And I look at this, and I go, what's this? He goes, this is Massillon High School. I said, can't be. Windows were painted shut on the building. I mean, it was the old Massillon High School that was over there. But, and going to those McKinley-Massillon games, I mean, when there was 25,000 people in the stadium, that was a huge deal. I mean, they had Blanket Hill over at Fawcett. And I talked about Kerry Cook, Mike Cook's dad, who you know well. Bill, his father, had taken me to the first McKinley-Massillon game I'd ever gone to.
Yeah, I've had great memories. So I grew up in Market Heights, over on 31st and Logan. And I remember in 1996, my neighbor, so we went to the game, and my neighbor was going to the game, and there had to be 20,000 people there. There were a ton of people there. McKinley obviously was loaded. They're very good. And we come home, and my neighbor left the game early, I guess, and my dad's talking to him, and I hear my dad go, what? My neighbor won the 50-50 at the Massillon-McKinley game, and he took home $12,000.
Yeah. He wanted to get out before anybody knew he had that money.
Yeah, he did. He hightailed it home, so that's always fun. But we're happy that Centennial Plaza's here, and people are able to enjoy the game in different ways. That they don't want to battle the traffic. Hopefully the Buckeyes put some space between themselves and Iowa here before the Massillon-McKinley game starts. All-time series record is kind of surprising to me. I know because, in the 80s and 90s, McKinley really had their way with Massillon. But the overall series record, and a lot of this is probably Paul Brown, in his success in the early years of Massillon. The overall record is Massillon has 74 wins, McKinley has 53 wins, and there's been 5 ties.
And back in the day when they were both AAA or Division I, however you wanted to phrase it, there was an opportunity for them to play twice during one season. Mm-hmm. But I think that it was you and I that were having the conversation that the OHSA has been looking at Division I and don't necessarily want teams that are 1-9 getting in. So they're going to change the male enrollment to be Division I. And if that's the case, North Canton, Greene, Massillon is going to move up to Division I, and I think that's a given, isn't it, next year?
Yeah, so they are going to move. They're currently at 7 divisions right now. They're going to move to 6 divisions. So all those divisions will get a little bit bigger. And I think what Division I is right now is the 72 biggest schools in Ohio, enrollment-wise for boys enrollment. And I think they're going to expand that. So, yes, we could see, again, where Massillon and McKinley are in the same playoff region. And some of and it's happened multiple times where they've played week 10 and turned around and played week 11 or turned around and played week 12. And, this week we had the opportunity to do an interview with Coach Tom Mcdaniels. If you haven't seen that interview, go to our YouTube page, Stark Media Team. It's an hour long. We interviewed Coach Tom Mcdaniels right over here in Jersey's Cafe. And he was phenomenal. He talked about some of those matchups, and he talked about, the mental aspect and the mental grind that is the Massillon-McKinley week. Or, I'm sorry, we're sitting here in Canton. The McKinley-Massillon week.
We'll teach you.
So that's a great interview if you want to go check that out. It's on our YouTube page. But, it is such a mental grind for these kids and these coaches. And sometimes, what's the aftermath?
Well, and I think that year that Nate Moore was his first year, I think that might have been Dan Reardon's first year also.
Yep.
For those two guys to come into that situation and try to work through that, because as coaches and as players, I think that we like to stay on schedule. And this completely takes you off schedule with all the breakfasts, luncheons, interviews, and things like that you have. And yeah, and you can't let the coaching staff or the players get too high before that game. I mean, you have to peak coming into that thing, and that's where that experience really helps you there. And I think that having some of the guys that graduated from these two schools come back and talk to the kids makes a big difference. But when you look back at the coaching legends that have come through some of these schools, over at McKinley with Bub Rearick, Ron Chismar, Don Nealon, and then Massillon, you mentioned Paul Brown, Bob Cummings, great coaches that came out of these schools, and the pressure that they have. Coach Rose told me this, that they had
Bruce at Massillon.
Right, they had a meeting, and Earl Bruce was there, and Coach Rose was talking to him, and he goes, hey, how much pressure is it, to win down at Ohio State? And Coach Rose said that Earl Bruce put his hand on my chest. He goes, nowhere near the pressure that it was when I coached at Massillon. He said the weight of the entire city sits on your shoulders week after week. Being a coach at McKinley and Massillon is not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. And, Antonio Hall, being a alumnus of Canton McKinley and being on those state championship teams and those national champion teams, get away from my Jack Daniels. There's pressure that he puts on himself, and I've talked to him about that. I've coached with Antonio before. I've known him a long time. But the job that he's done with this football team this year, he stepped into a difficult situation, had to replace an entire staff nearly. He was the athletic director, became the football coach, took over, and what he's doing now with this squad is really remarkable. And when we talk to Coach Tom McDaniels, he still talks to Antonio a lot. And I think what has allowed them from the 0-4 start to now be 5-4 and win 5 straight is he never lowered the standard. Mm-hmm. He never said, okay, we're 0-4. Let's make it a little bit easier on these kids. Let's lower the bar a little bit so we can get over it. He hasn't. He's kept those high standards, of success and the tradition of champions at McKinley, and that's why they're in the spot right now. So hats off to Coach Antonio Hall and his coaching staff, what they've done over there. You know, Kevin Henderson's on that staff.
Good guy. Dan Patterson, who's
Dan
a great
Patterson,
friend of mine.
You know, Bedry Bardawill, Matt Leisure, who's been there for a long time.
That's a great coaching staff.
It is, yeah.
And I think that, you know, when you look at Massillon, they've got great guys with Mazer over there and Cale Miller, who is a great friend of mine.
Troxler, offensive coordinator, they brought him from Georgia. I mean, he paid them big bucks to come up from Georgia. So, yeah, 2 great coaching staffs. And, you know, we talked about it earlier. I wonder if this extra week Massillon had to prepare for McKinley is going to come into play. I think, you know, in most games you might say, well, Massillon might have to knock the rust off in this one.
No way.
No way.
No. And I think that, you know, in talking to Ron Johnson back in the day, he told me, he said from week 1, he said, we were constantly preparing for week 10. There was always something that we were doing over there. This gives them 2 weeks to heal, gives you 2 weeks to prepare for something. And again, I don't ever remember anybody coming into this game with having a bye week the week before. And, you know, and that schedule that Massillon ran this year was so good. You take a bye week and you're still sitting number 1 in your region and not by just a little bit.
Yeah. It's going to be an uphill battle for McKinley today, but they have the talent. They have the talent to pull it off. You know, Massillon probably has a little more experience over on their sideline overall with a lot of kids that played last year. But this McKinley team is dangerous. They can score. They have multiple people that can get the ball and go 80 yards right now.
And mentally they have to stay in the game, though.
Absolutely.
You know, so you give up a play and somebody scores a touchdown. You know, momentum is the toughest thing to get, the easiest thing to lose, and you can't have anybody on that sideline putting their heads down.
Yep, that's for sure. That's for sure. You've got to stay in this game mentally. Adversity is going to come to both sides in this game.
Absolutely.
And you have to be able to weather the storm and stay calm and say, you know what, we're going to play our game, and we're going to continue to fight until the final whistle goes off. So, you know, I think it's going to be a great matchup. We're excited to be able to bring this game to you here. I know there were limited viewing options to watch this game, so we're going to put it up on the big screen here in a little bit. Again, thank you to Pat Wyatt, who's over here, who runs the operations down here at Centennial Plaza. Thank you to the Parcher Realty team, Marianne and her group, what they've done with their sponsorship for us, and Jersey's Cafe. I've been down here for multiple concerts. I was down here week 1 for the Browns game.
Oh, wow.
And when Cade York made that field goal to give the Browns the win, it was like we were in the stadium. People are high-fiving, going crazy. So what a great, you know, venue this is for the city of Canton.
It's a little diamond in the rough down here. You know, you got the big spires coming out here and all these people, and starting to see, you know, more and more people getting here right now. Some old familiar faces. We talked, Frankie D'Antonio was down here I grew up with. I know that Dr. Frank Ianni is sitting out here. He's a longtime McKinley fan, but appreciate these people coming out here and how much fun this was, you know, doing this with you. When, you know, you'd asked me about it, and TJ said, yeah, we're going to put the 2 of you. I said, hey, 2 St. Thomas guys doing this?
Yep.
Does it get any better? I don't think so.
No, yeah, it's beautiful down here. You know, one of the events that I always like is when they have Disco Inferno down here. So I love it. My wife loves it.
I didn't see you as a disco guy.
No, Disco Inferno's great. I've watched them down here. It gets crazy. They had the big parade down here last night. You couldn't see the green.
Wow.
And the rally that they had down here with the mayor and the McKinley team and the band and the cheerleaders. The cheerleaders were here earlier today. We appreciate all of them. Again, one extra trivia question that we had. If you know who has the most rushing yards in a Massillon-McKinley game, come on up here, let me know. I will buy you a beer. So if you know who has the most rushing yards in a Massillon-McKinley game, come on up here. Wasn't that long ago. I'll give you a hint. It was in the 90s. So we are going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to put a bow on it. We're going to give you our predictions. Hopefully, when we give our predictions, no one throws anything at us since we're sitting in Canton.
Everybody knows what the predictions are right now.
Yeah, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. the young lady that came up here guessed Adrian Brown, and that is a good guess because Ace was the leading rusher for McKinley for a long time, but that is not the answer. So we're looking for who is the leading rusher in a Massillon McKinley game. All right, we are back here live from Centennial Plaza. This is the Stark Media team, Massillon McKinley game tailgate party. We just had a winner of our trivia question. A young lady came up, and the question was, who has the most rushing yards in a Massillon McKinley game? And the answer was Travis McGuire, Massillon Tiger in 1991.
Good trivia question.
Had 302 yards rushing.
Wow.
For the Tigers. And Tom McDaniels, we talked to him, he talked about that game a couple weeks ago. He said that was the only game that I really felt bad after a Massillon McKinley game, besides the playoff game that they had lost. But so congratulations to that young lady. She got herself a free beer.
She was smiling all the way over to
yeah.
jerseys.
She had a good first guess. Adrian Brown was her first guess, and that was a good guess, though. McKinley Bulldog ace there was their leading rusher for a long time, until the mid-2000s. But we are about 40 minutes away from game time. Massillon McKinley game. We talked about some of the history. We talked about some of the key players in this game. Now it's time for our predictions. I'm going to talk a little bit about both teams and what I think their strengths and weaknesses are. First, for this McKinley team, I think, like we said, Coach Antonio Hall has done a wonderful job from the 0-4 start to where they are now. I think a lot of people forgot that they started 0-4. He's got a young team. Dante McClellan, sophomore. Nino Hill, sophomore. A lot of guys on that team that are contributing are young players. They've got a big sophomore offensive lineman, defensive line, number 54. His name's escaping me right now. But, Keaton Rohde in his first full year starting.
Only a junior.
Starting as a junior at quarterback. They have the ability to run the ball, and they've done that really well. They've got to prove they can do that against a better team. We talked about before, the Federal League as a whole was down this year. And McKinley ran right through the Federal League. They dropped that first one to Perry, which was an uncharacteristic game of them. It was a fluke in my mind for that McKinley team. But they're running the ball really well. But we talked about it. They've got to get the ball to their playmakers. They got to get the ball to Sincere McNeil. They got to get the ball to Dante McClellan. They got to get the ball to Trayshawn Foster, to Hill. They got to spread the ball around and continue with that running attack today. And then I look at the the one thing I think for McKinley is, the linebackers and the defensive line might be kind of the weaker part of that team. We talked about Jenkins on the defensive line. He's been excelling for McKinley. But Trayton Mackey at linebacker is going to have a big game. Perlozzi at linebacker is going to have a big game to slow down this Massillon rushing attack. But then you look at the Massillon Tigers, who I think is Coach Nate Moore. He's had some Division I guys on this team, on his teams in the past. I think this is his most complete team for Massillon.
When Eden Longwell was there, I really liked that team. I think that
when they lost to Hoban in the state championship.
You would know that, yeah. I think that I thought that was a complete team because Aiden was a better quarterback than Slaughter is. When we talk about this game, we talked about McKinley, what they need to do. I think that they really need to keep Massillon off balance when McKinley's on first down. You got to throw on first down. You can't wait until it's 3rd and 10. And I think that keeps that defense guessing. But they have to throw something that's going to get them some yards too, so they're not sitting behind the chains. We talked about special teams play, and I think in these games, special teams is always important. And I think that if McKinley can steal a deal there and maybe take a kickoff return or a punt return back, they can do that. But they absolutely have to keep the game close to have an opportunity to win.
Yeah. This Massillon team, I think in the secondary, they've been improved. I think in the years past, their secondary has been lacking. But they've got playmakers all over the field. Will Charles Hartson at running back. Freddie Lennox, I think, is going to play in this game, the speedster. Tolles out at receiver. Ardell Banks at
Who's
receiver.
decommitted from Toledo, so I don't know.
Because I think he wants a bigger offer. I think that's what they're looking for there. Pringle at linebacker for Massillon is an absolute stud. Jalen Slaughter, we talked about his growth at quarterback. and this is tough for me to say a little bit because I was the offensive coordinator at Hoban for 5 years, and there's a little rivalry there with Massillon. But I think Massillon is the best team in the state of Ohio. I think that team that played Moeller week 1 that lost 49-31 is much better now. Mm-hmm. And obviously this game is whole separate from the rest of the season. But I think Massillon's the best team in Ohio. And this is the best chance that I think they're going to have to win a real state championship.
Well, and it maybe it's a Northeast Ohio bias, but Cincinnati Winton Woods is going to have a say in this.
They're good too. They're the defending champs. But I like this Massillon team. So predictions for today, we've said what both teams have to do. Mm-hmm. Who do you got in this game?
I think Massillon wins today. And all these people that are sitting out here, my heart's with the Bulldogs. I born and raised here in this town. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see McKinley win this football game, but I think Massillon wins today.
Yeah, I've coached with Antonio Hall. He's a good friend of mine. He's doing phenomenal things for this McKinley program that the results aren't seen right now. Mm-hmm. What Antonio's doing with the youth programs in the city of Canton, it was kind of the Wild West there for a while. People have all-star teams and different youth teams, and there's this team and that team. He's kind of bringing them all together now in building this program like it was in the 90s and like it needs to be. The city of Canton does a great job of supporting their team, and I think Antonio understands the city of Canton. He understands what it takes to be successful at McKinley. So I don't think this game is going to define him as a coach, as it sometimes does for coaches at these games. But I think Antonio Hall is the right person for the Canton-McKinley Bulldogs going forward, and I think they're going to be really successful. This is a young team who, outside of this game, I think can make a deep run in the playoffs.
Well, and we talked about their staff. I think it's a really good staff that they have over there, and these guys genuinely enjoy coaching at Canton-McKinley. I mean, it has its challenges. I think a lot of times people think all you have to do is roll the ball out at Canton-McKinley and you're going to win. That's not the case.
No.
You've got kids that are coming from families that don't have good family backgrounds. These coaches are their parents.
Sometimes, but I've seen a lot of people. We talk about the Bulldog 100 Athletic Club, what they're doing, to help these kids out, and at McKinley, and now the school district is investing in their kids in athletics. I mean, there's people sitting in this plaza or anywhere that knows the advantage of athletics and how that forms you as an individual, mm-hmm. the values that it instills in you. And it's nice to see, what they've done over there with the new turf, the locker room, the weight room. They're building an indoor facility, football, all sports facility down here on the Timken campus. They just renovated the locker rooms at the field house, and the field house is going under a renovation. So I think there's a lot of things to be excited about in Canton City schools. But however, I wanted to, give credit where credit was due before I made my prediction. I think Massillon is just too good in this game, and I think McKinley is also a really good football team. I just think Massillon is going to win this game today. They're at home. That always counts for something over at Massillon. Maybe a couple extra yellow hankies come out. But that's going to happen. We're now a half hour away from game time. We're going to wrap things up today. We appreciate everyone out here. It's a beautiful day at Centennial Plaza. We talked about before. We appreciate Pat Wyatt, who runs the operations here at Centennial Plaza. We appreciate Marianne Parcher and the Parcher Realty team. Check her out up here. She's got a lot of stuff. We appreciate Jersey's Cafe and Chris Majori for everything he does in helping us out down here. And if you're thinking, who the hell is Stark Media? Stark Media team was started about a year ago right now by TJ Downing and JP Simon. We're bringing you a ton of content on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Check us out. We're giving you all your updates on the high school sporting events, college sporting events, community events. And we're no fluff, no BS. Like Jim Bauer and I have our high school football rewind show. We tell you the way it is. We don't have to comply to some of the regulations, that other radio stations do and TV stations, those types of things. So we're going to give you the facts, exactly how we see it. And so make sure you follow us. We appreciate everyone coming out. Hopefully the Buckeyes put a couple more scores on the board before this Massillon.
They need
McKinley
you as
game
their
starts.
offensive coordinator.
I don't know. I think Ryan Day does just fine without me. But we appreciate everyone coming out. I will say this since we're in Canton, and go Pups.
There you go.
I think Massillon's going to win, but go Pups. We'll see what happens. And we appreciate, again, Jeff Lindesmith by the Canton Central Catholic Crusaders coming out to join with us earlier, AJ Sarbaugh of the Fairless Falcons. And then also this Wednesday, live on our YouTube channel, we're going to have a Stark County playoff preview at 7:30 p.m. Wednesday. We're going to preview all of the playoff games for Stark County. If you're only going to be down here for part of the time, you want to listen on the radio, Sam Berkwin will have this Massillon McKinley game on Rock 106.9. And we're going to get out of your guys' ears here. We're going to put the sound on for the Buckeyes game for the for the next half hour, and then we'll get the Massillon McKinley game up. So appreciate you taking your time today,
Hey, thank
Mark,
you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was fun, and hope everyone goes and gets some beverages here. I'm going to go get a refill on this Jack Daniels.
You earned it.
Yeah, and thanks for coming out, everybody. Enjoy the weather, and like we said, go Pups.
There you go.